I asked Kyle Shanahan yesterday about the mechanics of Trey Lance's high misses, and he kind of blew it off and was like, "Man, I don't overanalyze this stuff. I just watch where the ball's going. I try to make sure their feet are in the right position, but you're making too much out of it." And okay, it just happens that Alex Smith goes on Colin Cowherd today, talks about this very topic and how Andy Reid talks about it. And it's like, well, let's talk about why you missed high, and let's look at your feet. Maybe you're a little too spread out. What do you make of basically Kyle's answer? Was he just trying to be like, get at me, or is he really like a non-teacher in this aspect? Like, I thought it was a little concerning. What did you guys think of what he said in comparison to what Alex Smith says Andy Reid would say in the same situation?
I haven't seen that yet, but I'm going to check it out. But what I would say is that's the second time that Shanahan's been asked that kind of a question similar to that, and he's answered it the same way both times, because I believe it was right after the draft. They talked to him about helping Lance with his mechanics and things like that, and he said, "Well, that's really done before they get to us. When they get here, about the only thing we really work on is the footwork and making sure their feet are in the proper place and those kind of things."
And they're going to the right spot with the ball.
Yeah, I don't think he was blowing you off. I think he was given the same answer that he's given before.
I agree.
That's his approach to it, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think that's a position that you need to be coaching all the time, not necessarily on every throw, but there needs to be parts of, there has to be discussions on mechanics when he comes off. When Jimmy Garoppolo goes in, the quarterback coach, there needs to be somebody that's talking to them about where, what they're doing, because they should be able to analyze it right there on the spot and help them so that the next time they step in, they're doing better. Because otherwise, practice, you always hear the saying, right? Practice makes perfect, but that's not right. Practice makes perfect. If you're not practicing it properly, doesn't make you better. Right. So I think
bad habits at that point. Yeah. Do it right one time, not wrong 10 times. I'm sorry, Jack. You're doing great.
No, you're right. No, that's exactly where I was going though. I mean, if it's happening in practice, you can't. Why are you going to waste three days of OTAs on bad mechanics and then send him off and then wait till he comes back? That just doesn't make sense to me.
And it's very simple. I'm just going to jump in real quick. But if you think about the mechanics of throwing, missing high or low, if you overstride, you want your release point to be out in front of you. If you can visualize it, you want your release point to be out here. And if you're overstriding, you're going to release up by your ear. And that means you're going to miss high. I mean, that's what Andy Reid is talking about. Just don't stride so much. And with a guy like Trey Lance, you have a really strong arm. You don't have to stride so much. I'm sorry. Who's next? I get excited.
I like it. I love the passion, Grant. When we get passion out of you, we got a good topic. But so I'm one of the biggest Kyle Shanahan fans. I'm sure. No slander against Shanahan, right?
That's true.
But the one critique that I think is valid is when it comes to like specifics about quarterbacks, you don't necessarily see a huge increase in like accuracy percentage and mechanics went under Kyle Shanahan. And the reason for that is I don't think he fixes quarterbacks through mechanics. I think he fixes them through scheme. So how he's going to make a quarterback better is scheming plays where they have a larger window of error, meaning that the receivers are going to be more open. It's going to be an easier read. It's going to be something where they don't have to be perfect to get the job done. Because whether it be Jimmy G, whether it be any other quarterback that we've seen, you haven't seen these huge strides as far as like their weaknesses becoming strengths. But what you have seen is like opportunities for them to look good because the scheming is just on point. And I feel like that's kind of his mentality, and he kind of leaves it up to the quarterback coaches to fix like the mechanics and things like that. So,
okay, good call.
Yeah, I think in answer to your question, Grant, it's definitely both in my mind. I don't think Kyle's going to pass up an opportunity to take a shot at you. I think that we can all agree on. But
I appreciate that.
I also think that EQ and the way in which Kyle interacts with other human beings is the biggest question mark I have about him. I also am a Kyle Shanahan fan. There is no coach in the NFL I would rather have as the head of the 49ers. However, I have seen what he did to Jimmy's confidence. I saw a different Jimmy this year, and I'm hoping that carries through. Just in that one press conference, you
saw it, right? It was like he's back.
Confidence is back.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still He's still nervous on camera. He still doesn't get the fact that he's an Adonis. Like, I mean, he just doesn't realize how physically attractive he is, and therefore how much we forgive him for whatever he says or does.
It's true.
But I think that, it certainly, I hope that the Rich Scangarello rehire brings us back to a point where you have some sort of a filter between Kyle and the guy that Kyle is coaching. I think there are very few human beings out there that can take the type of direct feedback that I think Kyle likes to give to people. I think he can coach a very select number of people. Could be that Trey is one of those. I'm not sure yet, but to me, it is about that interaction, that EQ, that inability to realize that what you say may devastate another human being. Look at Dante Pettis and the relationship between he and Kyle. That was hard to watch from a human standpoint. So that's my biggest concern. That's a big trend for me, the EQ concept versus IQ with Kyle, and something that's been rolling around in my head that I really want to do an in-depth piece on because I think it's an area of weakness for him.
Maverick, have you gone yet?
No, but I haven't seen the clip, but I just know that Colin Cowherd has Trey Lance's best interests in mind. So I'm glad that that's there and it's ready. But I think that I know perfect practice is what you want, but it's the first couple days. So
true.
I just want to reserve making a comment until, if it's still if it's week 2 of preseason and Kyle's still not fixing anything in mechanics, that's a little more concerning in my opinion. But first week, it might just be something as simple as like you said, developing chemistry with Elijah Mitchell. That's big. And developing chemistry with Sermon or Brandon Ayuk or whatever, or Lance. I think that's just as important right now. And if he has to focus on his footwork, and maybe that's just the thing Kyle values more. And I don't coach quarterbacks, but I'm fine with it for now. But if it goes to week 2 of the preseason and Trey Lance is still having bad mechanics and Kyle's admitting it's bad mechanics, that's a little weird to me.
Okay, let me tell you more about this clip because not all of you guys saw it. There was more that Alex Smith said. He said, what you don't understand about Andy Reid is he's essentially a teacher at heart. What he does best is teach. Even though he's known as like a play designer and he's an evil genius, he's really good at teaching. He's like, he can teach offensive tackle technique, guard technique, center technique, quarterback technique, tight end technique. And if you look at his background, he was an offensive line coach for the Packers, assistant offensive line and tight ends. Then he moved to quarterbacks coach. I mean, he really has all this background. And what I've heard about Sean Payton, same way. He can coach defense. So he can coach every single position on the team. And that's just their background. It's experience matters. Teaching matters. And now I look at Kyle Shanahan. What's his background? He played wide receiver. He was a wide receivers coach at Houston. He was a quarterback coach for 1 year in 2007. And then he's been an offensive coordinator. So, I mean, he really doesn't have the background that Andy Reid has to talk about biomechanics of throwing, or that Tom House, he doesn't have the background. And you look at Rich Scangarello, man, dude was a quarterbacks coach for 2 years with the Niners, and then he was a quarterbacks coach for 2 years at Idaho in 2002 and 2003. I'm guessing he's not really an expert on throwing biomechanics either. So I think Kyle's just being honest. It's really not something that this organization specializes in, and that's why they need to outsource it to the dude in LA at USC. Tom House, he's right there. It's not that hard. It's where Tom Brady goes. But, yeah, it's not something the Niners specialize in. But when you said, Suneil, they can get guys open and they can give them receivers. But if you're missing way over the top, it's like doesn't matter, man. So you got to figure that out. Yeah.
And it's not like Alex Smith didn't pick one of the best coaches of quarterbacks ever in the history of the NFL. For sure. You know what I mean? So, like,
he's like, I just have an appreciation because no one's like him. Sure. Hey, Kyle, you want to be like the best? Go see what Andy Reid does.
Sure, but then, Kyle's strengths also are there that Andy Reid might not have. You know what I mean?
True. Good call. Hey, that was a good question and a good discussion. That was a good discussion.
Let's not do too much piling on right now, Grant.
Just to interject here, it was magnificent to see Alex in that interview. God, I miss that guy. He's phenomenal. So likable.
Tony Romo can be play-by-play. Well, Alex Smith could be like a guy on, Colin Cowherd. Him and Joe Staley, they're both fantastic. Brian Tate, real quick, says maybe Niners need a mechanic specialist to their coaching staff. I would think so. I mean, you just drafted Trey Lance. Everyone knows the thing with him is mechanics. He'll say it. His coaches will say it. I would think is pretty important to get someone in who specializes, or just have, Tom House on a retainer. Like, hey, we're going to pay you $3 million ahead of time. And anytime he needs to come down, you give him your full attention. One way or another. I mean, they always praise Jed York for giving him private planes and stuff. Like, this is the money you need to be spending.